What's up, guys? You're listening to another episode of Selling on Amazon with Andy Isom. I have a special guest for you guys today on the podcast. Sarah Fisher, the founder of Lottie Dottie, is joining us on the podcast today. Sarah, thank you so much for taking time to share some thoughts with us today.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Andy.
Now, a lot of our podcast listeners, they really enjoy hearing like these startup stories, right? From people just like them. And honestly, I was in that same boat back in 2020, February of 2020, I think it was, when I recorded those first 8 episodes. At that time of our business, I'm just trying to remember, we launched in July of 2019. So February of 2020 would have been roughly 7 months into the business, right? Of selling, right? If like we launched, we're selling 7 months in, we were maybe doing a few $1,000s a month, like nothing crazy, like no crazy amount of sales. So it's crazy because now when I talk right on the podcast, our sales are a lot higher. And I think, at least for me, when I consume other people's content, when I hear stories about people saying, I'm selling $50 million a year on Amazon, it's almost, it's inspiring and motivating, but also to some degree, it's almost like unreachable. That's kind of the way I feel sometimes, like, wow, that'll never happen to us, or that'll never happen to me. So again, I appreciate you taking time to jump on, because this gives kind of like a good, realistic expectation for people like, hey, this is how my journey has been. So Sarah, if you don't mind, maybe we'll just start quickly. Just give us a little backstory about why maybe you started your brand on Amazon. Like what motivated you? Why did you become interested in this? And what kind of was that turning point for you where you said, okay, we're going to give this a go?
Yeah. So 2020, I became a mom. I chose to stay at home. And I think ever since becoming a mom, I was always searching for kind of a side hustle. I tried some things with like Etsy, kind of influencing stuff. And that stuff was it was stressing me out. It was not working for us. It wasn't fulfilling. So in January of 2022, I stumbled across an Instagram post about selling on Amazon. So I decided, maybe I should look into some kind of relevant podcast on the topic, found your podcast, and you kind of introduced me into the different types of selling on Amazon. And I decided that building our own brand would be the best for our family. And it was just kind of always daunting for me to think about having to go back to work once our child goes, off to school. And I was kind of just sick of the corporate world telling me what kind of salary I was going to be given. So I put the ball back in my court. I showed my husband some YouTube videos, and he's a gambling man. So he said, I'm all in on this. If you do it, you really got to go for it. And I said, okay. I have my degree in apparel merchandising. So that kind of, and I've had experience in visual merchandising. So that background I have. I started to do some research and exploring what product I should do. And my interests are heavily in motherhood currently. So after doing Jungle Scout research, I found what product we should start our brand with. So after months of work, I finally launched Lottie Dottie in November of 2022. Our brand name is after my grandma Dot. She was always such a patient, loving grandma. And then what we offer is nostalgic prints, gives those 70s vibes, kind of giving the comfort of being at grandma's house. So yeah, that's kind of our backstory on the brand.
For those of you, I'll put a link or the Instagram handle here in the description of the podcast. So make sure you guys go check it out. You can check it out right now while you're listening to the podcast, actually. I remember when I first saw your Instagram account, I can't remember if you messaged me from it or somehow, but eventually I found it, right? And I was like, dang, this is cool. Like, this is a cool, creative vibe for your brand. It's unique. It's different. It's not just like the same old cookie cutter, like nice logo, but like it had a really unique angle. And I think that is what gives your brands like that strength, right? That connection is like, it really speaks out to people who really like that, like who really like that 70s vibe. So I thought you guys did a great job with your branding, just, as a side note. But your story is like so many other stories out there, right? I get so many messages and DMs and stuff from people. And usually for most people, I'm just thinking back of like all the Zoom calls I've done with people. It's a life event. It's a life event that like triggers that I want to do something for myself. I want to start a business, whether that life event is, having a baby, especially your first kid, right? Like that's a huge life change, going from no kids to your first kid. That's a huge life change. But there's other life changes too that that may happen to you. And having a baby is like a very fun, exciting life change, right? For most people. But there's the life change of losing your job, losing a house, losing a loved one, like more tragic, big life changes that trigger that, oh crap, like I want to do something for myself. I need to do something for myself, right? So I think a big key for a lot of people listening who may be feeling this interest, right? If you're feeling this interest right now in starting a business because of a life change, right? That's really strong motivation. But for those of you who are not experiencing that big life change, like you're not having a baby, you still have your job, right? Everything's maybe good as far as you can tell. Start now. Like don't wait for a huge, crazy life change. Like don't wait until you lose your job to say, oh crap, like I should probably start my own business because I could lose my job at any time. Because once you lose your job, you're out of money and then it's going to make starting your business that much harder. So just a little side note reminder for you guys, if you're having that, how do I say it? Like that entrepreneurial itch or that personal revelation, if you want to call it that, to like, you have that feeling. The universe is trying to tell you something, right? It's trying to tell you something like, hey, you got to take some action. You got to look out for yourself. You got to look out for your family. So I think that's a good reminder for people. Sarah, I know that your journey specifically, because we've been chatting a little bit before the podcast episode. I know that your journey has been a unique journey compared to maybe a lot of other people, where maybe you launched with a product that you felt really good about beforehand, right? You did all your research, right? And everything, you felt great about it. But then maybe things don't go as well as you thought they were going to go. And then you decide to maybe take a little pivot. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience for you guys? Like how that kind of went down?
Yeah. So we launched with our first product and I was kind of wondering, okay, where are these sales coming in? Like they're just, I wasn't getting the sales that I had anticipated. So instead of just sitting on that inventory, I decided to pivot and do something about it. So we've gone down a different path recently and we are doing socks for mom and their mini. So toddler sock, we go from 9 months up to five years old for kids. So yeah, we've pivoted and that once we changed what we were doing, the sales started coming in to the point where we got a low amount of inventory just to make sure that the product was going to sell. And it has really taken off. So we are waiting now to get a restock until the end of the year. So we've got a little bit to go until we are fully restocked again. Also, another thing that we've done with this product is we've within a month gotten into 10 different retailers. So that is another journey we've gone on outside of the Amazon.
That's awesome. That's something that we hope to get into in the future, is maybe get into some retail a little bit. We've gotten in a few just little boutique shops here and there, just basically people ordering big wholesale orders and then reselling it in their little shops and whatnot. But I want to stay on this topic for a little bit because I think this is something that a lot of other people are going to run into at some point, whether it's their first product, their second product, their third product. Eventually, guys, if I could use the baseball reference, eventually you're going to strike out. Like just like in baseball, no one gets up there. Like if you know baseball or a baseball player, no one gets in there into the batter's box and hits a home run every at bat. No one in the history of baseball, no one has ever, every single time they go up to hit a home run. And it ain't going to happen for you and your business. You're not going to launch every product and every product's going to be a home run money making machine for you. Whether you strike out on your first product, your second, your third, your fourth, your fifth, you will have a strikeout. I can almost, if I was a betting man, I'd bet the house on Vegas that you will strike out at some point. For you guys, Sarah, why do you think that first product or, the product that you pivoted away from, and again, guys, if you're listening, this could apply to any product. Why do you think that product wasn't successful for you?
I think that the competition was too high. And also it was a product that had such a short amount of time that it could be used because it's for babies and it's something you use for a couple months and you're done with. So I think that was something that I learned along the way. Like this is something that's not going to be able to apply to a lot of people, this product. So our new product is something that many ages can use. So that was kind of what we found. And it just took trying, honestly, to figure that out. And sometimes it just takes to delve in and do the research, hands-on research, not just computer research, to figure out where you need to go.
Well, my takeaway from that, guys, is basically what you said was it was a product with high competition and what you were kind of describing as has maybe a short shelf life or like small time of usage, smaller market would indicate lower demand. So that's where things can get really tough, guys, is if you're trying to sell a product with high competition and lower demand. If it is a high competition product, you can still be successful. The second brand that I'm a partner with is in an extremely highly competitive market, but there is very, very high demand. And it has a long shelf life. It's not seasonal, right? It's not like it only works for 2 months and then they're done with it, right? It's something people can use for years and years. So just keep that in mind, guys, as you're thinking about products. But Sarah, do you have like any big major regrets about trying with that product?
No, because it was such a learning experience for me. Yeah.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
And you said it great too. Like you said, it took actually trying to figure that out versus just like staring at numbers on Jungle Scout or like some software tool. And here's what's crazy about Amazon, but just about business in general. Like this could literally apply to any business. Just because something like a software, Jungle Scout, right? Just because Jungle Scout says to you, right, based on your research, like is showing, hey, this might be a good product to sell. That does not necessarily mean for 100% certainty that that product is going to crush it for you at that moment in time. Like there's so many other little nuances, right, to the product, the angle, the marketing, the like all the little elements, right, also play a factor in it. And guess what? There's also products, guys, that you might research it on Jungle Scout. Like, hey, I have this product idea in mind. Let's go check it out on Jungle Scout. So you type it in Jungle Scout, and Jungle Scout, the numbers, right, are saying, bad opportunity. Like, basically it's telling you, don't do this, right? Don't sell this product. But guess what? You could go sell that product and crush it with that product. So so now this is, I guess, bringing up the question, are software tools valuable? I still think so. Yes. I still think yes, like doing market research beforehand more often than not will be beneficial. But like in your guys' experience, like there are going to be times where, things just don't go as well as you hope they go or you thought they were going to go. But that doesn't mean that like it was a complete failure, because you guys learned so much in the process that helped you with your next product that, like you mentioned, is already gaining a whole lot of momentum. And here's the other thing. I'll just mention this really quickly too, is what you learn from a failure of a product that you launch doesn't necessarily mean that that specific product itself was a failure, but it could mean that you need to do something different with that product or with your offer. So maybe like the quality of your product just wasn't good enough. Maybe your price point was off. Maybe your bundle, maybe you needed to sell a 5-pack instead of a 2-pack. Like there's still little elements of the product itself that you can also try tweaking and testing, before like saying, oh, this product is a complete fail. Like, let me go totally different direction. Not saying that's for every product, right? But just think about that too when you're considering your products on, if it's not going as well as you think, how could you change the actual product itself or the offer to see if you can boost sales? But Sarah, you also mentioned with this new product, you guys did something really smart, right? You started with maybe a lower order quantity to test. Why do you think that's important to order smaller number of units, right? Smaller order quantity to test a product before like going all in and ordering 10,000 units at once?
Well, it was a financial risk for us. I had already been in on this inventory we're sitting on with our first product. So I wasn't willing to just jump in and order a high number with this next product. So we ordered it and we found that it's proven in the market. So now we have a very high order quantity coming in now, but our profit margins are going to be really good with this next order because we ordered such a high quantity.
Did you have any trouble negotiating that order quantity with your supplier, or were they okay with doing a smaller number?
No, they were fine with it. And that's how I knew, okay, this is my supplier then.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, like, guys, start with the lowest minimum order quantity that you can where it makes sense. Meaning it makes sense that, I'll give an example. And most products probably aren't like this, but you might go to a supplier and you say, hey, I want to make this product or sell this product. And they'll say, okay, minimum order quantity is 2,000 units. And you're like, I'd rather not start with 2,000 units. Can we do like 500? And if they say, okay, cost or price, I guess, of 2,000 units is $2 a unit. But they'll reply to you and say, okay, yeah, we could do 500 units. But if you do 500 units, cost is $5 a unit. So you went from $2 a unit to $5 a unit, $3 increase per unit. That's not crazy. I mean, you might say, well, that's more than double. Yeah, but I mean, when you think about, let's say you're going to sell it for $25. Like that's not crazy on your margins. It's a little bit, it eats your margins a little bit, not crazy. But if you say, okay, instead of 500 units, I want to start with 100 units. And they're like, okay, to order 100 units is $12 a unit. At that point, that's where I'm saying that's where it doesn't make sense. So negotiate your minimum order quantity down as far as you can to where it makes sense, because you might find a supplier that's like, oh yeah, we can do 10 units if you want. But then again, like 10 units is also like so low where if you list 10 units on Amazon and you sell all 10 and you sold 5 of them to your friends and family, and I don't know, 5 of them, yeah, it's a random sale, but like you don't get a review from it. Have you proven your product in the market? I wouldn't really feel confident that I was like, sweet, people bought it. Let's go order 10,000 of these. Like I wouldn't feel confident. So it's kind of that balance, right? Of finding for your product, it might be different for everyone, right? It's finding that balance of like the lowest minimum order quantity that makes sense for the financials, but also is like, okay, if I sell 300 units and get some reviews, am I going to feel like, yes, I've proven this product. I can go place a big order. I can take that financial risk because I feel good that I sold 300 units, or is it 500 or is it 1,000? Like I said, it might be different for everyone depending on you, your comfort, your product, right? So just consider that as well when you're trying to negotiate or figure out what your first order quantity is going to be. If you could go back in time, Sarah, this is something that I try to ponder every once in a while. If you could go back in time to the beginning, like maybe you don't remember the exact day, but like pretend it's that day that you decided we're going to do it. Like that moment, you're like, we're going to do this. And you took that very first step. If you could go back to that person right now and just like give them one big piece of advice before they like started that first step, what would you tell them?
Ooh, I guess when you're working with the manufacturers, if you have an issue, make sure you say something. Don't be afraid to speak up. With our first order, we had these robes and they were actually supposed to be just a solid color, and they went ahead and did it with a print. And I'm just not confrontational at all. So I was just like, it's fine. I tried to negotiate it down. They weren't budging. I just said, fine, it's fine. We'll take them as they are. I wish I would have spoke up about it. But so I think that would be a piece of advice, is just to make sure you're not afraid to speak up, because you are the customer to them. So
You went to suppliers with that answer, which is interesting. I've never gotten that answer. What made you think that? Like why supplier? Why the supplier thing?
I don't know. I just like think back to that moment where I was like, why? One of my friends, she's a realtor. She's like, you need to tell them to just fix it. And I was like, no, it's fine. It'll be fine. And now I have regrets that I just was like, it's fine. I just let things roll off my back. But you have to make a stand when you're starting a business. Sometimes you have to say something.
I'm putting myself in your shoes too in that situation. And you know this too. I think why that was such a memorable, right? That was such a memorable moment of this whole business journey, because you could have said anything, right? So if I say like, oh, if you go back in time, what would you tell yourself? This whole, almost 2-year journey that you've been on so far, you could have said anything, but that moment was very, very impactful and memorable for you. And I think a reason why is because that plays such a huge factor on the rest of your business. Like from that moment on, that totally changes or could change the whole trajectory of your business. I get messages from people all the time saying stuff like, Andy, I got my product shipped and a bunch of them are broken. Andy, I got my product shipped and the packaging is wrong. I got my product shipped and it's good, but they used different quality materials than what my sample was. All big problems, you could call them, related to the supplier, maybe that first order. Now, are these problems all like completely catastrophic? No, I'd say in most instances, no, but it does play a big factor from that moment on. Like think about it. You order 500 units and you ordered a solid color. They didn't send you a solid color. Now for the next 6 months, your business completely changes because now you're selling something that's different than what you thought you were going to sell, like that you had planned to sell. And strategized to sell. And in the example of like broken inventory or wrong quality, right? I would hope that you guys also listening are filing a trade assurance claim so you can get your money on that. But regardless, that can impact the reviews that you get. You can damage the reputation of your brand, and it can be very, very hard to recover from that. So I really like what you said. Like, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Like, don't be afraid to say like, hey, this is not cutting it. This is not going to work. And if I could add, Sarah, to what you're saying saying specifically about like communicating with your supplier and telling them like, yo, this is not the quality. We got to fix this. You can use that same energy with every other part of your business. If you do product photography, if you do, I'm just trying to think of like elements of the business that you may outsource, but even if you're doing it yourself, you have to look at it too. Like if you do your own product photography, you have to look at your result, like look at the work that you've done and look at it and say, that's not good enough, and be willing to say that and do it again or make it better. At some point you got to launch. Like I get that. Like don't be a perfectionist. So it takes you 10 years to launch your product, but you have to be humble enough, I guess is a good word, to look at your own work and just say, this isn't good enough. This isn't going to cut it, and do it better. That's something I always try to encourage people to do, is never stop looking for ways to improve your business, every single aspect of it. Your product itself, you might order 500 units and you might get them and you're like, these are good. Wow, these look great. Like, let's sell these. But don't think that it can't get better. Don't think that like, hey, on my next order, how can I make it even better? So you can communicate your supply like, hey, this order was good, like 500 units, we're selling them, they're selling, great. But maybe there's a little bit better fabric you can use next time. Maybe the print quality was like a little bit faded. Maybe we can make it a little bit, better. Like communicate this with your supplier and say, hey, is there a way that we can, like increase the ink on the print so it's like, a more saturated print design on this fabric, or a different printing method, or can we use a little bit thicker insert card? These are all things that we've done for our own business. Updated our insert cards, updated our fabric, updated our stitching, updated our leather. Like over time, we've just continually we've gotten samples and looked for ways that we can improve our product. So never stop improving. And like you said, don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. So I like that advice of, okay, that's like going back to the beginning, right? Stage one. So you haven't even launched your product, right? So stand up for yourself, stand up for your order, your supplier, all that kind of stuff. As someone who has now launched a product, or you got products right up and selling on Amazon, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned since launching your product that you would give advice to maybe someone else or tell to someone else?
Let's see. One thing I'd say is when you're building your listings, you got to make sure that you have good quality photos. You've got to realize that that's all that the customers are going to have to go off of when they're shopping online, is make sure your photos are good. And with that, with Amazon, you have all these customers at your fingertips, but with that comes competitiveness. So you've got to make sure you're bringing it with your listing, the quality of your product, building up those reviews. And yeah, that's probably what I would say, is just make sure your listings are good. Yeah.
Basically having a great product, like a great brand, a great product, a great listing. Guys, gone are the days of like 2018, 2017 Amazon, where you can just like throw up average stuff and like use the photos from the supplier and put those on your listing and just crush it. Like it doesn't work anymore. Like that's just not the way it is. The more the word gets out, right? And the word is out. I'm definitely a culprit of putting the word out there that Amazon is a great business model. More people are going to sell on Amazon. And we've seen that. More people are jumping on Amazon every day than ever before in the history of Amazon. Now, with that, Amazon continues to grow, like the customer base itself. Like we can look at the stats and everything, and I follow up with this too. Amazon is still growing as a platform, which means more and more people are coming to buy stuff from Amazon. So is Amazon dead in 2023, or maybe, moving in here to 2024? No, it's not dead. And it's not going to be dead in the same way that I might say, is Facebook advertising dead? No, Facebook advertising is not dead. Facebook advertising still makes thousands of people millions of dollars every single year. Is Facebook advertising a lot harder than it was in 2015? Absolutely. So it doesn't mean that it's dead. Like more competition, guys, doesn't mean that like the opportunity is done. It's over. I missed the boat. It just means you gotta be better. You gotta be better. Like you can't come into this business thinking you're gonna put out an average product with average photos, an average listing, average social media, and think that you're gonna get amazing results. If you're average with your product, your branding, all that, you're going to get average results, right? So I like what you said. Focus on the quality. Focus on the quality in every single part of your business. The quality of the listing, the quality of the product, quality of the packaging, quality of your social media, and just always look for ways to improve it. And if you can do that and you just stick with it, you're going to be successful. Guys, you're going to be successful. You just have to be in the game long enough. You just have to be in the game long enough. And Sarah, I think you guys are a great example of that, of just sticking to the process, understanding there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be things that don't work. There's going to be things that work. And you're still early in the game. Like a lot of people have that misconception of like, oh, 6 months from now, a year from now, I'm going to be making $1 million from Amazon. No, like start thinking 4 years, 5 years. down the road, what you can build, what you can accomplish, because it goes by like that. The last 4 years that we've been selling has gone by so fast. And I'm glad that we were able to stick it out even through our early tough periods of low sales to get to where we are today. Sarah, thank you so much for stopping by on the podcast today. Again, you guys have a great product, great branding. I love your guys' vibe, your style. Once again, guys, I'll put a little link, I guess, in the show notes here in the description for you guys to check out Lottie Dottie. And yeah, let's keep building. Let's keep working on our brands. Again, Sarah, thanks for stopping by, and I wish you the best of luck with your business moving forward.
Thanks, Andy.